Greetings, fellow scholars of the livestream. I'm Kutakuma from the Cosmo Observatory, and in today's analysis, we'll finish off our analysis sub-series about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's minigames, namely Rufus's Welcoming Ceremony March, 3D Battler, G-Bike, and Moogle Mischief. And round them out with a look at other minigames from the original game, which could make it into Rebirth too. Keep in mind that this analysis was first published on our CCO Substack on September 27th, 2023, along with the other 5 minigames, which we've already covered in the previous 3 videos, so please check them out afterwards if you haven't already. Now, without further ado, let's get started. First, we're treated to one a sizable portion of fans had doubts about even making it into Rebirth because it was already very silly in the original game, and broken to boot. If you tried to follow the game's instructions, got perfectly into the line, and matched the other troopers' rhythm, you'd most likely do poorly and were sent some bombs, 6 grenades, as a reward. To drive up the ratings, it's sufficient to only vaguely get into the line and then just keep spamming the rifle button. You can watch this explanation video or short strategy video here for more details. Even if they included this in Rebirth, it would need a huge overhaul, and that's exactly what happened. In the State of Play trailer and the official screenshot, we can see that Cloud is leading his own platoon, taking on the role of the Red Shinner Guard from the original version. This looks already promising, but there's a bit more to it. By pressing L2, you can even command your troop to change their formation, which likely contributes to your score. But that's about the extent of what we can glean out of the trailer footage, as there's barely anything shown off. However, Square Enix developers elaborated further in interviews following the trailer's release. One from Game Informer and the other from Inverse, with the former revealing only part of Hamaguchi's quote. If you remember the Rufus inauguration parade in the original, you may recall that there was that minigame where you press the button in time with the parade. Within Rebirth, Cloud is now leading this parade. Here, he'll be able to collect the soldiers that will join the parade, seeking out soldiers within the crowd, then set up a specific, unique configuration. This then determines the difficulty of the minigame and the results. And there's unique happenings that occur depending on which soldiers Cloud selects. From this short description alone, it sounds much more involved than its predecessor in the 1997 PlayStation 1 game. You don't just join the parade and press some buttons anymore, but actually take on the role of a leader, assemble your troops, and are responsible for how the parade is conducted. No pressure or anything. So instead of merely running around Junin's streets, entering numerous interiors to pester citizens and other guards, go shopping, visiting the second beginner's hall, and even catching the Turks drinking in a bar, Cloud needs to additionally find and recruit participants for the parade. Even the minigame's difficulty depends on which units you recruit, next to some unique quote-unquote happenings for certain soldiers. So we better search every nook and cranny in this place to find them all. Besides the minigame itself, we can find a few other interesting details in the clip from the trailer and the official screenshot. As we previously mentioned, Cloud has taken the place of a platoon commander, which was represented by this distinct model in a red coat and helmet in the original game. While Cloud is still wearing a standard security officer's uniform, his commander status is designated by red segments on his helmet and an additional red armband. Maybe it's a coincidence, but the destination distance indicator on the compass line shows 77 meters in the official screenshot. Very fitting to this game's numbering, don't you think? 2 7s for being the second entry of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy? Okay, we'll see ourselves out. If somebody still doesn't know in which stamp continuity we're in here, maybe this stamp poster on the side of the souvenir cart can help you out. Spoilers, it's a beagle. This next observation might probably be a bit of a reach, but it does feel like this female parade traffic attendant's blue uniform has been inspired by the red commander model from the original game. On the other hand, it does look pretty much like your standard Japanese traffic attendant uniform. Lastly, one cool and one silly finding. In the top right, we can spot part of our beloved Highwind airship, which seems to have been faithfully recreated. In the bottom right, however, a random cardboard cutout of Rufus is standing at the border of the street. We can almost smell the narcissism just by looking at this image. Viz hopes that we can tip them all over and earn the Rebellious Property Damage trophy. 3D Battler was not talked about at all in any interview or article, which means we only have the state of play trailer footage to go on and don't have an official name yet either. So we'll call it 3D Battler as it's called in the original game. Before we dive into Rebirth's reimagination of this minigame, let's drive down memory lane and have a look at its original counterpart from 1997. This holographic attraction is found in the center of the arcade room in Gold Saucer's Wonder Square, and after paying 200 gil, Cloud has to face off against 5 foes in direct succession. When either combatant takes the 10th hit, he goes down. If Cloud goes down, the game is over, and you'll have to start again and pay the 200 gil cost. If Cloud's opponent goes down, the next one appears immediately after. This boxing match is turn-based, so whenever you throw a punch, your opponent does too. You have to choose between a low, mid, or high punch executed by pressing cross, square, or triangle, respectively. Which one of you gets hit depends on a rock, paper, scissors principle. High trumps low, low trumps mid, and mid trumps high. Your opponent's counterpunch is chosen randomly, though the probability for a hit thrown, hit taken, or a tie changes with each opponent against Cloud's favor, decreasing your chance of winning each time. It does therefore not matter which one of the 3 punch options you choose, so you can press the same button over and over with the same results. By looking at the reimagined version of this game, we can immediately see that the game rules have changed drastically. It evolved from a mindless probability match to an involved and actually skill-based brawler. The rock, paper, scissors rule set has made room for a simple left and right hook and guard moveset. And instead of turn-based, it's now ATB-based and even provides an additional limit break feature. As we can see here in this short trailer segment, throwing a punch empties a combatant's ATB gauge. We then need to wait until it's filled up again. However, whenever the opponent throws a punch, we can dodge or guard to avoid getting hit at any time. During such a dodge or guard maneuver, ATB regeneration is halted, as we can see in the Japanese version of the trailer. A hit points gauge or display is nowhere to be seen. It seems like the developers decided to keep it hidden, akin to the original version. Unless there is some other way to read how far away your opponent is from a KO. Or Cloud for that matter. The addition of the limit break feature is unexpected but very welcome. Each time you manage to hit your opponent, your limit gauge fills up by 20%, which means that you'll be able to deploy your limit break every 5 hits. This applies to your opponent as well, however. Viz finds it interesting that they chose to use the L2 and R2 trigger buttons for executing attacks instead of the L1 and R1 bumpers, which would lead to more precise inputs. Will they make use of the PS5's tactical features to increase immersion while throwing a punch or executing a limit break? Another question mark relates to the increased difficulty for each subsequent opponent. Faster ATB? Harder to read animations to trick you into dodging into or guarding on the wrong side? Shorter punch windup? 2 punches per full ATB gauge? Only time will tell. While everything about the game mechanics and UI has been modernized, the polygonal look of the models remain, which we think is the perfect way to capture this specific minigame and retain the original's look and feel, even if the textures and lighting are miles better than any model in any PlayStation 1 game. The third Gold Saucer minigame that has been revealed in the State of Play trailer on September 14th, 2023 is G-Bike. It's one of the more popular ones and the first of 3 in total, acting as virtual representations of story-based minigames to be replayed ad infinitum in Gold Saucer to earn GP. It was so popular that Square Enix decided to create and release a mobile phone version of it on October 30th of 2014, boasting more modern graphics and many more gameplay mechanics like sliding, jumping, and additional attacks to defeat more bosses like a behemoth or even a guard scorpion. Unfortunately, it was discontinued only 15 months later on December 15th, 2015. Fun fact, this mobile game was also developed by CyberConnect 2, the company that Square Enix outsourced Final Fantasy VII Remake to during the first 2 years of development, before they took everything in-house to ensure efficiency and a high-quality standard. Now, back to the original version. While escaping from Midgar, we need to protect the other party members riding an SA-37 type motor tricycle from Shinra's motorized pursuers. Each hit taken deals HP damage to a random party member on the tricycle. The more hits they take, the lower their HP at the start of the Motorball boss encounter at the end of the highway. Same goes for Cloud. Remake even added another instance of this minigame in Chapter 4, where Cloud, Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge ride their bikes topside to the Sector 7 plate, where Jessie's parents live and a Shinra warehouse is located, their actual target. The Gold Saucer version in the original game is basically identical to the version we played during the story. Cloud can move around on the highway and attack pursuers on either side by pressing square or circle on the PlayStation, or switch or OK on the PC version, to prevent them from tackling the Shinra hauler vehicle with Cloud's friends on board. That's about it. The only difference between the main story and the Gold Saucer version is the scoring. Instead of losing HP when tackled, we merely lose points gathered by defeating Shinra pursuers with our sword. Plus 500 points for a kill, minus 50 points for a hit on the Shinra hauler. Whenever you finish with 5,000 points or more, you receive 2 GP, and when exceeding 10,000 points, you're rewarded with 10 GP upon crossing the finish line. In terms of UI, it only displays your current score in the top right and your all-time high score on the top left. That's it. Very simple. Contrary to the original game, Remake's story-based minigame and Rebirth's Gold Saucer attraction counterpart show quite numerous differences. Let's have a look at the identical parts first, however. Naturally, the controls have been retained. R2 and L2 to accelerate and brake, R1 to guard, and square and circle to attack on the left and right respectively. Triangle unleashes the special attack Spinning Slash, which was already a new addition to Remake compared to the original version. Thus, the core of the minigame remains intact. However, the L1 button indicator for switching to a long-range attack is now missing, which means it's either not available anymore for balancing reasons, or we'll have to unlock it first. We can see here that it still requires some warm-up time before using it for the first time, and again later on. The only difference is the orange color scheme of the warm-up gauge for better visibility. Since it's now an actual in-universe video game, a score had to be added, the same as in the original game. However, instead of a mere personal high score, Rebirth's version takes inspiration from Whack-A-Box in Remake and Episode Intermission, where we must meet 3 different target scores to obtain 3 different rewards. This official screenshot heavily hints towards this concept making a return. In it, the target score of 18,000 has already been met during previous attempts, as signified by the green tick icon. The next one to meet is 22,000, as indicated by its orange color. The total score currently lies at 16,100, and there's not much road left until the finishing line, as the position gauge in the top middle reveals, which is a new addition to the Remake Trilogy version, although it was already present in the G-Bike mobile game we talked about earlier. However, we can make out two signs displaying the number 1000 hovering on either side of the expressway ahead. It's possible that we receive bonus points for reaching certain distance milestones along the way, increasing the likelihood of reaching those target scores. The only thing throwing this off is how the total score never increases in neither the English nor the Japanese trailer, despite Cloud mowing down several enemies. Maybe it's counted per wave? Interestingly, the Shinra hauler SA-37 with the rest of the party on board is nowhere to be found. Instead, Cloud is swarmed by many more enemies. Instead of protecting your friends, it seems that we need to not get hit ourselves in order to avoid point loss, and thus entirely focus on Cloud. But what about that health bar at the bottom right? That gauge represents something else, but more on that shortly. A completely new addition is the Nitrous Boost, which presumably exists to quickly close the gap to opponents farther ahead, to avoid being swarmed, or to reach the goal more quickly. It's also possible that attacking opponents with an active Nitrous Boost will bring them down more easily. According to the UI, we can hold 3 Nitrous Boost charges at a time. Pressing cross will consume a charge and speed up our bike for a short amount of time. Speaking of speeding up, we're now able to check our current speed in what we presume to be miles per hour. This doesn't think it has any direct gameplay significance beyond numerical feedback and a reference point. The gauge below, on the other hand, certainly does hold gameplay significance. The story-based versions of this minigame showed our vehicle's health in that corner. Now, it seems to be the fuel gauge. If you pay close attention, it ever so slightly, but continually, depletes during its short trailer segment. If it reaches 0, the minigame most likely ends prematurely. It thus represents a de facto health bar. The faster we drive, the faster it depletes. Can we refuel on the way to the goal? Yes, we can. Along the expressway, several strings of hexagonal G tokens can be seen and collected by Cloud when close enough, which then greatly increases the fuel gauge. Nitrous Boost tokens also exist and represent themselves in the form of golden hexagonal tokens holding the same triple arrow up icon as seen on the Nitrous Boost UI element. So much for the minigame itself. But there's more. The UI is mainly made of hexagonal structures, G and Boost tokens included, as we can see here. When collecting G tokens, a blue shield-like hexagon pattern appears briefly around Cloud's bike too. Those hexagonal structures, which many UI elements are laced with, are largely incomplete and connected to lines, which heavily reminds of 2D representations of molecules. Curious. The hexagon shape is also prominently featured in the discontinued G-Bike mobile game we detailed earlier. Many menu elements and buttons bear this shape, as well as the visual screen tap effect. What's even more interesting is the well-known tessellation pattern seen above certain parts of the racetrack, almost enveloping it. It's as if it was shielding this memory representation of the bike chase sequence, or containing it. When enemies erect a damage shield around them, like the Scorpion Sentinel for example, it is represented in the very same tessellation pattern. A pure square octagon variant is also a prominent pattern in the movie Advent Children, which appears along the movie title and credit names. Furthermore, countless tessellation fragments can be seen flying by in Remake's Chapter 18 during Cloud's memory dive towards Sephiroth at the edge of creation. Additionally, this square octagon tessellation pattern permeates all of Crisis Core Reunion. It graces many UI elements like the battle start indicator, the DMW area in the top left, during activation of mini memories in the DMW and the big ones covering the whole screen, DMW bonus displays like limit breaks and level ups, menus like the home status screen or the zone map, or even the loading screen. Since Zack is a soldier bathed in Mako and injected with Genova cells and everything connected to the DMW operates in the context of memories, this tessellation pattern is strongly tied to those concepts. It's worth noting that this tessellation pattern was much less prevalent in the original PSP release of Crisis Core, as it mainly only appeared in the battle start indicator, the targeted enemy name background in the top right, and the DMW when it is moved into full screen mode. All the other elements we touched on do not bear any tessellation pattern in the PSP version. This speaks to it holding much more importance in this modernized canon, due to Crisis Core Reunion increasing its presence this drastically. In any case, it's fascinating how all abstract forms and patterns in this minigame are connected to nature, chemistry, memories, and Genova's legacy. All concepts connected to the life stream and treatment of Soldier through Mako showers and Genova cells, as Crisis Core clearly shows. The Mog House is back! But in a completely different form than in the original game, where it was a mere game machine and Gold Saucer's Wonder Square. Before we dive into both versions, here's what the official Square Enix blog post about Rebirth's world reveals about this minigame. A minigame to bring mischievous Moogle kids back to their Mog stools. The Moogle kids will attack you in every possible way, so be careful not to be caught off guard by their cute smiles. Sounds completely different than what we remember about the Mog House minigame, doesn't it? Before we take a closer look at how this Mog House minigame has changed, let's refresh ourselves on the original version. In the back of Wonder Square's arcade machine room stands a conspicuous gaming terminal in the shape of a Moogle. If you pay 100 gil, you can play Mog House and attempt to find Mog a mate by helping him fly. If you succeed, you can talk to the person behind Cloud who's been watching him play. This onlooker seems impressed and gives Cloud 30 GP as a one-time reward for beating the game. Otherwise, this minigame provides no tangible rewards. As for how this minigame works, all you have to do is feed Mog the right amount of Koopo nuts twice. Once to make him fly on his own, and once to have him fly again in front of his potential mate, Meg, to impress her. To do that, just throw a nut in front of him by pressing the confirmation button as many times as needed until Mog makes a different sound. 5 times for his first attempt at flying, and 3 times to impress Meg. That's it. Afterwards, you can watch both mates exit the house with 12 children in tow. Congratulations, you've ensured the survival of the Mog lineage. At least virtually. In Rebirth, it seems that Mog has already found his mate Meg and founded a family with 5 offspring. As if this remake trilogy was a sequel to the original game's continuity or something. Anyway, once in this magical space of the Mog House, more on that in a bit, we need to return all 5 Mooglets to their Mog stools, and it seems that this is much easier said than done. It looks like we need to catch them by pressing the interaction button when close, but here we can see that that interaction is blocked, as seen by that grayed out symbol on the Mooglet. We probably need to somehow catch them off guard so that they don't fly away and attack. Moog and Moolulu show a white exclamation mark instead of a colored Mooglet head icon below their names, which could signify an escape mode during which they cannot be caught. It's likely that we need to dodge and endure attacks by them until they are exhausted, and we can finally interact with them to see them home. Speaking of attacks, we can witness 3 different types being thrown at Cloud in this trailer. 1 lets energy blasts rain from above, which explode upon impact. Luckily, a red reticule on the ground shows those impact points, making them easier to avoid. Another attack comprises of several bombs being tossed towards you, though they do not immediately explode when hitting the ground, as the fuses need to burn off first, leaving you a few seconds to get away. The third type of attack involves flinging rotating wind sickles in a straight and horizontal trajectory towards Cloud. This one seems to be the hardest to dodge. It's very likely that those 5 Mooglets deploy a different type of attack each, as Mookie and Mulala are chilling out in the background and do not attack. We can also see the head icons of those Mooglet receiving a glowing red circle around them when an attack is in progress. This is an especially important tell for attacks coming from off screen. To make evasion easier, we can also use the parkour feature in here as we see here. But what happens if Cloud gets hit? I'm glad you asked. As we can see here, Cloud has a Moogle's pom-pom attached to his head. Such a pom-pom appears when he gets hit by an attack from one of the Mooglets. Here we see a second pom-pom is added to Cloud's head while being dazed from a recent attack, the Wind Sickle. When hit and while dazed, Cloud is surrounded and protected by a spherical energy shield, held together by a sturdy hexagon pattern similar to those we detailed in the G-Bike section, which most likely prevents successive hits, just like in old school games where the player character and sometimes even enemies blink repeatedly after a hit, during which they are invincible. What happens when Cloud receives more pom-poms? Viz expects that we'll lose the minigame when our pom-pom count reaches 3, or when we get hit while carrying 3 of them already. Maybe the game graces us with checkpoints after each Mooglet has been returned home, but we wouldn't hold our breath. That's it for the minigame, but there's more to the Mog House. To everybody's surprise, which left their mouths agape, the Mog House happily resides out there in the wild, just like that. During Square Enix's live presentation at Tokyo Game Show, the pre-recorded gameplay demo footage of the Grasslands area contained a segment where the player was running towards a combat assignment. Unfortunately, the player only briefly stops there to show off its existence and give Hamaguchi-san time to briefly comment on it before quickly moving on to the combat assignment location further south. Long enough, however, to also get a glimpse of Mog and some of his Mooglets, as well as those cute Moogle stone statues. As we can see, the actual surroundings around the Mog House differs greatly from the natural environment the house is in. Everything looks plasticky and, for the lack of a better word, fake. It seems that we get transported into Moogle land upon entering, or maybe even by interacting with the Moogle in the front. But that's not all. The Moogle with the white bandana is a shop owner, and he greets us with the following.
Welcome to our Moogle Emporium.
He then proceeds to explain what we need to do for him.
The Mooglets are having too much fun to come back on their own, so I want you to round them up.
This sounds like we need to do this shop owner a favor first before we'll be able to conduct business. What business, you ask? Well, Moogle medals make a return in Rebirth and basically serve the same purpose as in Remake, with the difference that we can exchange them at a real Moogle Emporium and not with a slum child dressed up as a Moogle. No shame, Moggy. This in turn means that multiple Mog houses are scattered all over the world, possibly one in each region, and each one houses, pun intended, a Moogle Emporium. Will we need to do a favor for each one and round up the Mooglets, or does this happen just once upon the first visit and all Moogle Emporiums are then automatically unlocked? Only time will tell. Lastly, can we appreciate the accurate modern representation of the original Mog House on a pre-rendered background from 1997? Just saying. This was a really long set of videos, but we wanted to make sure we covered everything, so we scattered them across multiple videos as to not be too daunting or overwhelming. Let us know if you liked that approach. With Rebirth covering everything up to the Forgotten Capital, in terms of the original storyline, we can expect the following mini-games to make an appearance as well. CPR. This is one that we expect to be cut, but we've already seen in the Junin area preview demo that Yuffie is the one losing consciousness instead of Priscilla. So Viz could see a scenario where Cloud has to do something to bring Yuffie back from limbo. Train Track Treasure. Not quite a mini game, but when running around the sine and cosine wave inspired train tracks leading to Corel, and you don't jump off in time when the track crumbles beneath your feet, you fall down along the construction and have to climb up again. While falling, you are able to mash the confirmation button and move left and right. This last part is important as you can land on the left, the right, or the center of the screen and then can only climb upwards, unable to change lanes. The left and right side each harbor a treasure, a wizard staff for Aerith on the left, and a star pendant accessory on the right. If you don't move at all, you'll end up in the center and end up empty-handed. You can also only fall down 3 times, so you better move to the left on one occasion and to the right on another. More at Gold Saucer. Wonder Square offers even more mini-games, such as arm wrestling, basketball, Wonder Catcher, which is basically a claw machine, and fortune telling. It's also possible that Rebirth offers entirely new mini-games in this area. We also should not forget about the Battle Square. Here, we fight against at most 8 groups of enemies, while slot machine wheels add a handicap, or healing if we're lucky, each round to make upcoming battles harder and harder. Winning all 8 battles or bowing out early rewards us with battle points, which we can then use to exchange for unique rewards, such as Enemy Lure, Preemptive, Speed Plus, or W Summon Materia. The instruction manual for Cloud's Level 4 Limit Break, Omni Slash, is also exclusively obtained here. Speed Square houses another attraction at Gold Saucer, called Shooting Coaster, where we ride along a roller coaster while shooting down everything that either moves or doesn't constitute as a wall. Bone Village. We most likely still need to dig up the lunar harp to wake up and find our way through the sleeping forest. In this minigame, we need to employ at least one worker and place them at random points on the map. After detonating the bomb, they measure the shock waves and then turn towards the spot where the item to dig up is located. We then need to tell them where to dig and, hopefully, obtain the unearthed item afterwards. And that's it for the remaining minigames we know will be in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The other ones, Queen's Blood, Chocobo Racing, Catch a Chocobo, Chocobo Time Trial, and Piano Performance have already been covered in previous videos, so feel free to check out our recently published videos to get yourselves caught up. With the release of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on the horizon, more analysis videos are bound to drop at some point. So make sure you like this video if you appreciate our work, and subscribe to this channel to not miss out on more. Which minigame in Rebirth are you looking forward to the most? Do you think we covered everything? What's your take on the extrapolated game rules? Please share your thoughts in the comments below or on our Discord server. You can also check us out on Twitter or X for more analysis content with the hashtag #CCOGems. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and take care. Kutakuma signing off.
But believe, know that you'll find me promises to keep. We won't ever leave.
Please, I'm begging you, lend me your strength.